Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and we're off on a European trip again. Now, I had hoped to take the Espada on a bit of a trip before sort of winter arrived, but as you can see, we've got the Project 8 instead. Poor old Espada, we had a fuel starvation issue at higher revs, so I ran it all in and then it just wasn't putting at the top end like it was before, and we've just, it's up at Ian Tyrrell's. And we've discovered that there's an issue with the fuel tanks, the actual gauze inside the tank. So the Espada is having some work and we probably have to fit new fuel tanks, unfortunately. So we've gone to a plan B, and what we're actually going to do this week, in a couple of days' time, Beaujolais Nouveau gets released in France. They have a big party, and there was something all through when I was growing up in the 70s, something called the Beaujolais Run. It still exists today. It's very different to how when it was established in the 70s. So I'm actually going to join the organiser of the Beaujolais Run and do some of the history, because it has a fantastic backstory, how it came into being and how actually it has a direct connection to children in need, which I'll explain tomorrow. So that's the first part of the video. The next step is we're going to head over to Germany. We're basically going away for a few days, and there's some fantastic Christmas markets in Germany, and one of them is in Freiburg, and that's quite an interesting town because to the left of it is a de-restricted autobahn. Now we'll have to see what the weather's going to be like when we get out there, but I've always been intrigued whether this really is a 200-mile-an-hour car. Well, we might be able to find out if the weather gods are favourable and there isn't too much traffic. But also around that area, there's a famous hill climb just south of Freiburg, and then we're going to do one of the best roads in Germany. So I've only been to the Black Forest area of Germany once before, and that was on a Mercedes G63 launch. And I have to say I was quite taken by it. And asking a few people who know the area better than me, there is one road in it called the N500 that goes from Baden-Baden in the north and goes all the way down to right down to Switzerland and past Freiburg. So that's why we're basing ourselves there. Basically on this trip, what I want to do is explore some areas of Europe that are great driving roads, but not as far away as going all the way down to the Alps or Italy or something. There's fantastic roads also in Portugal and Spain, but they're a long way away. What have we got a little closer to the UK? What does this Black Forest area of Germany offer? Well, that's what this trip is all about. And to prepare the Project 8 for that, I actually spent the morning swapping tyres. So rather than the Cup 2 tyres, I've now got the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, which will be better suited. I also have to say thank you to those guys who spotted me last time I took the wheels off the Project 8. I wasn't using these sort of guides that you put on the wheel studs once you've taken a nut off to drag the wheel away so you don't touch the relatively delicate carbon discs themselves. They absolutely make it much easier to take the wheel on and off and line up the bolts. So thank you for all of you who pointed out my mistake. I now know what those two tubes do in the boot that I hadn't a clue before you wrote in. Last time I was in Germany and with a de-restricted autobahn, I had the winter tyres on, and that wasn't too good because they had speed limited. These aren't speed limited. There's no snow about. The forecast is reasonably mild. We'll wait until when we get out there. But yeah, so what we're going to do now, take the car down, get it packed up, trip over to France. We're just going to say just outside Calais. So if all being well, you'll rejoin us in France, and I'll show you the route that we're going to take, get down to the Beaujolais Nouveau party tomorrow evening. Well, morning. We're in France, but we're in a very special part of France because we're in the Reims circuit. If you look up, I'm actually in the Jaguar pits of the Reims circuit. Now, this is a very famous sort of stop-off. It's a bit cliche coming here. I haven't been here for a few years, but it is very atmospheric seeing these old pits. There's grandstands I'm looking over there. but there hasn't actually been any racing on this road circuit since, I think, well, the late 60s for cars, and I think 72 was the very last event held here, a motorbike race in 72. All the greats have been here: Fangio, Sterling Moss, Jackie Stewart, Jim Clark, they all raced here. The fastest race was a F1 race. It was 1967. Average speed of the lap was 220 kilometers an hour, and it was crazy fast. It's 5.5 miles round, 2 minute 11 second lap, I think it was. Got too quick and it was closed down, but it is well worth dropping in. It's only 2-3 miles from the autoroute, just at Reims itself. You go in for the centre, etc. But I thought I ought to explain what's going to happen today. It's an unusual Harry's Garage, this one. It's actually my birthday today, and all through 1780s, when we went out to celebrate my birthday, there was Beaujolais Nouveau release. They coincide. Beaujolais Nouveau is the first wine of the season released by the wine growers of France, and it's released on the third Thursday in November. And so it always coincided with my birthday. And if you're growing up in the 80s, there were a thing called wine bars, and if you went out of an evening and it was on Beaujolais night, you got a thick head. It wasn't the best wine in the world, but after the first couple of glasses you didn't really mind. It's all a bit of fun. So what I'm actually going to do today is to go down to just south of Mâcon, which is the region where they produce the Beaujolais Nouveau. I'm meeting with a wine producer, and he's getting ready for the big release, which is tonight. There's also something called the Beaujolais Run, which I explained earlier, when they used to dash the wine back to London. That doesn't happen anymore. There was a Harrier jump jet. RAF decided we're going to set a record that is unbeatable for dashing Beaujolais Nouveau back to London. And yeah, no one can compete with it. So it's now a charity event, and it raises a huge amount of money for charity. So I'm going to meet up with the guys. There's a Beaujolais Run organised this year, very low key. There's only about 10 cars in it. Meet with Rob, who's been organising it for many, many years, and just discuss the history of the Beaujolais Run. So after the wine producer, we'll then meet him at the hotel where the whole idea of the Beaujolais Run was hatched, and then we go into the local village where they celebrate the release of Beaujolais Nouveau at 1 minute past midnight with a fireworks display. Loads to do, but just so nice to be at the Reims circuit and just see this crazy grandstand, this sort of ghost circuit that is no more, but all this infrastructure is still here. Got a bit to do, time to charge off and just see how it goes. Well, we're cruising down through France towards Mâcon, just gone past Troyes. I had hoped to sort of just do a little bit off-piste, get off the autoroute, but unfortunately the weather isn't great today. It's sort of, you know, misty, autumnal, not really the sort of day I really want to do a sort of route through the hills or some special roads. It's also sugar beet lifting season, so if you're into farming, that means a lot of mud on the road. So we're just going to head down to the wine region and meet up down there. But I thought I'd just show you what's going on here. What I do on the autoroute, an interesting thing called all surface information. There we are, and it's telling me this car is using rear wheel drive. I try and accelerate. No, it's all rear wheel drive. This is a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and that's because I've got it in eco. It just seems mad to me that a car as wild as a Project 8 has an eco setting, but it does seem to work. I'm looking at 28.2 mpg, which isn't bad for the last 450 miles. And I have to say I use this eco setting quite a lot, which is just crazy really. But it does mean if I try and accelerate, it keeps it in the high gear, it doesn't kick down and goes rear wheel drive. But if I use this one here, I then have comfort mode. We go back here, suddenly it will add front wheel drive, dynamic, a bit more, and if I put it into track, then it will add a lot more front drive. So that's basically how it all works. On a trip like this, I just put it into eco mode. And might as well, because I also set the cruise at 85 miles an hour we're set at the moment, which is about right for the limit of 130 kilometers an hour with the speedo correct, etc. And then just cruise through France. I can't also get over French autoroutes, how quiet they are. I just did my decibel reading in this car, and it's 72 decibels at 85 miles an hour. Much quieter than UK motorways, although they do seem to be changing their tarmac. So there you go, some boring trivia for the Project 8, as I'm not sure how far, we're about 200 miles away from destination and all the craziness around Beaujolais Nouveau tonight. This is slightly wild. We're just about to go up to this vineyard to discover all about Beaujolais Nouveau. I've met with Mike Stevens, who's in that car there, with his good friend Fred, who has a Jensen Interceptor, which I couldn't believe when I saw it. It was a little French village just before we get it up into where the vines are, but that is a very recognisable car to follow in a Project 8. A French left-hand drive Jensen Interceptor. I knew it was going to be a good evening. I didn't think it'd be that good. Anyway, we're going on a slight magic mystery tour for the next 10 minutes up into the inner sanctum of this wine region in this part of France, just south of Macon. This is his domain. This is where we're going. Jensen's got away. Jensen. Oh, we are. This is it, isn't it? This is the farmyard. I think. Nope. Nope. We carry on. We park up. This is it. Wow. Proper view.
So welcome. This is how it works. So the tanks, the vinification is at the top of the building, and this is the aging cellar and the tanks. Beaujolais Village Nouveau 2021.
Yeah. Here it is.
On dit que c'est minuit. Hein.
Well, that's been a wonderful half an hour tasting a large number of wines in here. This is a very unusual, as I say, Harry's Garage, but this is just a celebration of Beaujolais Nouveau, and to find out how it's produced. And Laurent Soir, whose vineyard we're in here, that's him there, that's him on the label, has been taking me through the wines they produce here. I was asking how important Beaujolais Nouveau is to him, and it sort of is. It's like a celebration. It was only produced so they could celebrate this year's harvest. Just treat it as a celebration wine. This is the very first produce of this year's harvest. The grapes in his wine here, there's Beaujolais Village Nouveau and there's Beaujolais Nouveau that they produce here. Both this wine was picked on the 23rd of September. We are now on the 17th of November, and it will go on sale at 1 minute past midnight tonight. That is incredibly fast. It's a very quick process, so then they can speed up and get it into production this early. Japan really celebrate Beaujolais Nouveau, and that left here in October. It's 3 weeks to get it to Japan. So really fast production. These are the vats it was made in. What I'd love just talking to him, I said, why this shape here? That is the size to allow someone to get into there to clean it. So you don't want to eat too much sort of pizza and things to get in there. But that's that hole. You have to clamber into there to be able to clean the tank out. These are glass lined. Next door some oak cask. And then he just took us through the other sort of wines here. There's we even went off label. This is This is a 2006 off-label wine. So we had quite a lot of fun here. I think my favourite wine was actually this one, which is this is a vineyard just further down, and this is the actual area, 2019. Yeah, it's all available by private cellar in the UK. A real education. I asked him about screw top, and he says no, people in this region like the pop of the cork coming out the bottle, so they will continue to use cork. So anyway, all sorts of an education. I bought a little bit of wine. I'm going to come back in the morning. Now we're back down the hill, go and celebrate the release of Beaujolais Nouveau with a party in the town. Well, morning. What a night last night was. We left the wine tasting with Laurent Savoie last night and dropped down and met up with the Beaujolais Run guys. We went into Beaujolais last night to watch the celebrations of the release of the Beaujolais Nouveau. Madness in this sort of town, all blocked off, huge marquee. They've been partying most of the evening, and then it sort of climaxed at midnight with the fireworks and the release of the wine, which they showed by this crazy fountain and great big sort of goblets of Beaujolais Nouveau being poured into them, and everybody was having a very nice time. And I thought it was quite a big crowd, but apparently it was fairly subdued because of COVID. They got to reduce the numbers, but it was a good party to be had. And what we're doing now is going back up the hill to collect the wine that I chose last night at the vineyard. But it's a really quite fascinating area. I hadn't realised how there were these tiny pockets of wine producers, all passionate for what they produce. So it's 9 hectares, the whole business is 9 hectares of vines and 25 individual areas within the 9 hectares to make the ultimate different variations of the wine. It's quite a bumpy road, so the camera's wobbling up and down. Apologies for that. But just last night we were staying in the Hotel Mariton, which is where Clement Freud and I think it's Joseph Berkman hatched this idea of dashing Beaujolais Nouveau back to London in 1970 over a wine-fueled sort of dinner. Yeah, just reliving how it all works in this area has been great. The Beaujolais Run guys had great fun last night as well. They all left early this morning. They're going to do another leg. They're a champagne producer tonight, black tie dinner, etc. And yeah, we're just going to see what this area is all about. It's a fantastic area once you sort of go down the little by road. All up here, just see all the individual vines going right up the hillside, and there's a certain, they like the slopes. If it's sort of south facing or southwest facing, that's even better soil type. Some of these vines over 100 years old in this area, but it's everywhere. I'm trying to remember which way we're going without having a Jensen Interceptor to follow, which was very handy last night, I have to say. But we're going somewhere up on the hilltop up there. I haven't actually explained the link with the Beaujolais Run and the BBC Children in Need appeal, which is also happening this week. If you look back at the history of the Beaujolais Run, after the Harrier jump jet basically made it impossible to beat the time that they set for taking Beaujolais Nouveau back to London after the release at midnight, the Rotary Club in the UK sort of took over the Beaujolais Run as a charity event, and it was for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital was the link. And it was really successful, so we're now in sort of 80s, 90s. And then the BBC got involved because they thought this was a really good event and could they do something with it. And the BBC basically took over this charity event around Great Ormond Street, Pudsey Bear, etc. So that is the link between the Beaujolais Run and Children in Need. If you ever wondered why the Children in Need appeal is in the third weekend of November, it's because that's the date when Beaujolais Nouveau was released. Bizarre link, but there you go. Now, the Beaujolais Run is a separate charity event that still sort of replicates the release of the Beaujolais Nouveau and the dinner Clement Freud and where that all took place, where we were staying at Hotel Maritain last night. Great story, I think, and a link I would never have guessed at. Right, here we are. Well, that was all good fun. Laurent, his mum was here, so we just sorted out the last bit. There is my Beaujolais Nouveau, 6 bottles. I've sort of got the best car to actually rush it back to London, but we're not going to do that. I think that'll be not done. I've also bought a Christmas wine as well. I've got a couple of magnums of the Fleury, that's special wine they did, the black label wine. So there you go, a slightly different Harry's Garage, but just looking at what Beaujolais Nouveau means to this region and all these wine producers. It's funny farming, and I just love in France there are still these small producers. It's 6 generations here, the same family producing Beaujolais Nouveau and all sorts of other Beaujolais wines from this region. And the tradition goes on, just how they produce it, and all the domains around here with that slightly different flavour. I can see how people get enthusiastic about wines, but it needs quite a depth of knowledge to understand the topography and the different tastes. Anyway, what we're going to do now is revert back to a more normal Harry's Garage. We're going to then dive off to Germany and do the Autobahn and do this particular road in the Black Forest region of Germany. So hopefully that is the plan. So the next time you'll join us, we'll be in Germany with a bit of luck. And also, I ought to say thank you for subscribing to some fantastic numbers, because last night I checked on YouTube and we've just gone past 500,000 subscribers, which is just fantastic. Never really thought that would happen, but it has. So thank you again. If you haven't subscribed, if you don't mind subscribing, that would be really cool as well, because there'll be some more videos coming along very soon. Thanks for watching.